Okay, I'd like to show you an indicator today that is much better than volume in determining the strength of a price movement. And this indicator is called Intergy. It stands for internal energy, and you can find it at processtrading.com. It's part of the processtrading.com's right edge trading system. And that is precisely what it is. This is the Intergy indicator right here, and you can see that it is a histogram. And it will give you much more accurate, much more usable information than volume alone can give. So I'm going to show you here how it works and what it looks like within an uptrend and within a downtrend. Now, the characteristics of the Intergy indicator itself is that it shows green bars of the histogram for strength. Then it shows gray bars when price starts to show some weakness, and then it will show red bars when in fact the strength of the price movement is to the downside. Now, the nature of the indicator itself and also the nature of the energy in price movements, because we know that price movements come in, they have strength, and then they fall off. Well, so the Intergy indicator forms peaks and then valleys, and then peaks and then valleys, peaks and valleys. And that's the way that price movement works within the actual trading process itself. People come in, traders come in, they put their buy orders in, they push the price up, then the influx of buyers recedes, it tapers off, even some sellers comes in, and then price gets weaker, goes to the downside until the buyers think that again, a profitable price to come in. They'll come in with more enthusiasm, more trades, price will go up. And so you have these peaks and valleys. It's relative to an oscillator. This is an oscillator down here. This is the process trading cinnamon oscillator. And an oscillator obviously oscillates from lows to highs and then back down to lows, so that it forms the same type of thing. But the Intergy indicator shows you not only the relative position of like an oscillator does, but it tells you the strength behind that price movement. So let's look here at the energy of during an uptrend. Now we can see from the red bars here that it was in a downtrend of some magnitude, which we don't have to worry about right now. But then the red bars then started to weaken, and then they started to turn green. So this shows positive energy or buyers coming in to the process right here. Now, we don't know yet if that's going to be an uptrend or not. We do have several other indicators within the system that gives us some clues to that. In particular, we have these dots here that kind of are precursors to a trend movement. We have the cinnamon oscillator down here where the cinnamon line is all the dashed cinnamon line here is at the bottom, and the momentum line is coming up through the bottom and cutting through the cinnamon line, which is a very strong indicator. And so we have the Intergy turning positive right here at the same time that momentum is turning up and crossing through the cinnamon line, and cinnamon is starting to come up from the lower bound of the oscillator as well. So we have a number of indications here within a system that is telling us that price is going to be going in an uptrend, plus the VWAP line here for the PT VWAP line is yellow, which says that it is headed towards an uptrend as well. So we see that the uptrend started over here. We see the sentiment line coming up, crossing the median line, and still has an upward slope to it. And all the time, the price started to move up. The energy got low here, but it never went negative. It did weaken here, and you can see that weakness right here, but it never went negative. And actually, the energy indicator has two other components, which are an underscore. Could be yellow or it could be red. The yellow is showing strength and the red is showing weakness for price, so that strength is coming in here and the energy itself is turned green again, and now it's increasing towards an apex, of which will eventually taper off. Well, here we see that the energy went to an apex, and now the apex is starting to go into the valley. So it's peaks and valleys. It's starting to go into the valley, and it's getting weaker over here. The internal energy to it is getting weaker over here, but we still see price going up. Now, right at this point here, we can see that it's kind of flat. And in fact, over here where the energy shows that it's tailing off and going again towards the zero line here, we do see price coming back down here. So from this point here to this point here, we don't see a steep decline in price. We see it more or less going flat over here. And in an uptrend, that's what you'll see out of the energy indicator. It won't generally go deep into the red here. These valleys here will represent pullbacks, and that's what you see, a pullback right here. It went to a valley right here. This was a minor pullback right here. And if you know how to use the trend trading part of the process trading right edge system, you would know that you could go long right at this point here. But back to the internal energy, you'll see that it goes to a valley here. This represents a pullback. It goes to a peak and a valley. It had small red here, but then immediately it goes to green again, and that represents a pullback. So this is what that internal energy looks like, and you can see when it's strong and when it starts to get weak, where it's pulling back, so you know when to get in. You could get in, of course, over here. You have to use the other system indicators within the system, because it is a system to help you. But the more you understand it, the better you'll be able to come to those conclusions. And so you could get in at a pullback here, at a pullback here, at a pullback here. You could take profits 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 here. Now, that's not the suggestion, even though you could do it that way. What you want to do is trade with the trend. You want to let your winning trades run, and this is how it helps you, letting it run. So you know here that I'm in an uptrend. Everything's telling me it's in an uptrend, and I'm going to let the trade run with the uptrend until I see the system give me signs that a downtrend is coming. Now, I will coordinate the energy indicator here with just a couple of the other indicators real quickly. You can see this is the sentiment oscillator here, and it went from the low and it's going up, and the dash line crossed the upper bound. So sentiment is very strong to the upside right now, and you can see it hugging that upper bound, very strong to the upside. Even when the momentum of price came down to the lower bounds, and it went to the lower bound, the sentiment is still very high. The energy shows you that it's just a pullback. The VWAP says it's still in an uptrend. In the short-term trend oscillator, the VWAP would be more like a long-term trend. And the short-term trend oscillator here is gone green, and it's hugging the upper bound. So even as the momentum shows that it's coming down and you have a slight price decline here, and you would be asking yourself, is this the decline? Is this starting a downtrend or not? You can see that it is not starting a downtrend by all the other indications other than the momentum. The momentum did drop because of this slight pullback here, but all the other indications within the system show you that that uptrend is still strong. So now let's quickly look and see what it looks like within a downtrend. We're going to look at the energy indicator within a downtrend. And let me position this here so we can see that more clearly. All right, so there we are. We see the downtrend right here. And let me pull it back even a little bit further here. So I want to get to where the VWAP line, that's this line, I want to get to where that was yellow. Okay, so here, this is where the uptrend ended. There was an uptrend prior to this, and we know that it ended there because now the VWAP line is turned red and it is turned white. And now we want to start looking at the energy indicator and see what does it look like during a downtrend. Well, you can tell here by it was in an uptrend, but now the energy or the energy to it, the internal energy to price movement is very shallow. You don't see the high peaks and just coming down to a valley and a high peak and coming down to a valley again. You see some enthusiasm, but it's not strong here. Even though the momentum goes up above the upper bound in the sentiment oscillator, the energy doesn't reflect it. And this is why this tells you so much more than volume alone can tell you. So now we see weakness coming in here from the shallow attempt, and this is the end of the uptrend. And now the energy starts to turn red. And it's red for a significant amount of time here. So that, again, helps us tell what the situation is with the energy for taking price long or taking it short. And we can coordinate that with the sentiment oscillator. We see the sentiment itself is started to slope to the downside, heading towards the lower bound. So the energy indicator on a downtrend won't form necessarily the same classical peaks and valleys that it does the upside, but it still does form the peaks and valleys to the downside. It's just not quite as pronounced. Sometimes it's more elongated like this because there's a different nature to the selling process than there is the buying process. There's different enthusiasm. Well, one, if you go to the greed and the fear factor, greed has a lot of enthusiasm and stuff, where fear is a much more sharp type of anxiety in trading reaction. So that here we have, again, a small pop of a positive energy coming, and then an immediate decline into negative energy, and price continues down. So let me go over here now that we know that. And of course, the VWAP, the PT VWAP has turned white, and this is a more of a long-term indication of the trend, whereas the trend down here in the short-term trend oscillator, we can see that the short-term trend turned green right here, but it hit the pullback line, couldn't get above it, and it dropped down as well. So again, all this is helping you to understand what is taking place during the actual trading process and what the inertia is to it. So now let's go over here a little bit, and you can see that Here with some positive energy coming in, it went weak to weakness right here. Then it went negative down here. You can see how the sentiment slope starts to follow that. Then over here, some positive energy came in, weakness appears, and then it's negative again. So one of the benefits, again, is helping you to understand when and how long to let your trade play out before you take profits. Now, on the sentiment side of it, in the sentiment oscillator, we see it sloping down. That's very significant, and it gets down below the lower bound here. Up here, it crosses the sentiment oscillator, crosses from the lower bound, and it crosses the sentiment line. So the momentum in the sentiment is up. However, the short-term trend oscillator is just hugging this bottom boundary of the oscillator, and you can see the nature of this oscillator. It just doesn't have a high and a low hard upper bounds. The lower bound is starting to angle down now, so the channel itself fluctuates with the trading activity that's taking place. So that is a quick analysis of the Entergy indicator. Now, it has some other components to it that I won't go in right now. It has these particular indications of what's going to happen during price when you see these magenta, cyan and yellow dots and stuff. But the major factors of the Entergy indicator we went over, and you can see how powerful and how accurate it is, especially when combined and used appropriately within the system, so that you can trade at the right edge and know what is going to happen as price continues to move. So I hope that helped, and if you like it, go ahead and subscribe, and head on over to processtrading.com, check it out, and I'll see you in the next video.